welcome back to the channel. Thank you for checking out this video. I know it's been a little while. Wow, as soon as I got this one up and running, I just got really busy with all my other soccer stuff, but I'm trying to get back into it now because we've got the Copa America underway and we've got the Euros underway and we've got the Olympics coming up for the women's national team, which is what we're going to talk about here because the roster dropped today. I had done a previous video about this, about the roster that Emma Hayes had for the games against South Korea and the fact that it was going to have to be cut down to 18 for the Olympics, which is really tough. I kind of went through my thoughts on that, what I thought the roster would look like for the Olympics. And now it is here. Let's talk about it. And as you can probably see from this headline, this is one of the big issues of discussion right now, of course, is because Alex Morgan was not named to the U.S. women's national team roster for the 2024 Olympic Games. I believe it's her first major tournament, or I guess should read with that. It is the first major tournament since 2008, I believe, that did not have Alex Morgan. So that's kind of interesting. She is only 34. I know she had an injury back in April, but she went through the Emma Hayes camp and played both games against South Korea. So let's sort of go through this roster. Let's see if we can figure out what Emma Hayes is thinking, what she was looking for, maybe why she didn't have Alex Morgan or had some other players or didn't have some other players as well. So if we scroll down a little bit, okay, the U.S., their group stage is Zambia, Germany, and Australia. They do have a couple, did it say it in here? I thought maybe it says it further. They do have a couple of friendlies coming up before they leave for the Olympics. First, let's go through what the roster looks like. Where is it? All right, well, we'll read Alex's quote before we get down there. Always a class act. Today, I'm disappointed about not having the opportunity to represent our country on the Olympic stage. This will always be a tournament that is close to my heart, and I take immense pride anytime I put on the crest. In less than a month, I look forward to supporting this team and cheering them on alongside the rest of our country. Again, classy statement. I think there are some other players or some other athletes that wouldn't necessarily put out something like that. So kudos to Morgan. Now, here it says she's a victim of Hayes's generational change. Look, that change has been coming. We've all seen it coming. It's something that's been inevitable and has to happen. I don't know if that's a good enough excuse at this point in terms of her being a victim of the generational change based on some of the players that are there. For example, they mentioned Crystal Dunn, who is still there. Crystal Dunn, who is there as a forward instead of Alex Morgan and not there as a defender. And we've got another issue about that I'll get into a bit, but let's look at the roster. Okay, keepers. I wasn't sure about this when I talked last time, but obviously they're Alyssa Nair will be perfectly fine, so I have no issues with the keeper. I would have liked to have seen Jane Campbell get a shot, but like I said, I have no issue with this. Defenders: Tierna Davidson, Emily Fox, Naomi Girma, Casey Kruger, Jenna Neiswanger, and Emily Sonnet. My only real issue here, which I talked about in the previous video, is I think Sam Staub should be on this team, whether it's replacing Casey Kruger or Emily Sonnet. Sam Staub earned a spot on this team. She should be on this roster. She is a better center back than Emily Sonnet is. Casey Kruger, I think she's played some center back. I don't know if I've ever seen her play it on the national team, though. So I'm sorry, Emma Hayes. Well, I'm going to have to disagree with you there. That's an oversight. Sam Staub should be on this team. Midfielders: Corbin Albert, Sam Coffey, Lindsey Horan, Rose Lavelle, Katarina Macario. I don't really have an issue with the midfielders. I talked about that in the previous video, that roster seemed very thin in midfield in terms of the experience. So I felt like the midfielders that were there were going to get time. Obviously, Johannes is not on this. I don't think anyone really expected her to be on this. And then she came in for what, 15, 20 minutes and had a great 15 or 20 minutes in that last South Korea game. So then people started talking, well, maybe she will get a spot. Maybe she'll get that spot instead of Albert, but not happening. And then, of course, Macario was actually listed as a forward on that roster, and now she is going to be listed as a midfielder, which leaves another forward spot open. So you have for the forwards Crystal Dunn, Trinity Rodman, Jaden Shaw, Sophia Smith, and Mallory Swanson. I Between the two, my thoughts before, if I remember correctly in previous video, was either Alex Morgan and Crystal Dunn will both be on this roster for what they bring to the table and their experience and leadership, or they both will be left home. But only Alex was left home, and I'm not really sure as to why, because Crystal Dunn didn't show much against South Korea. I'm not saying Alex did, but Crystal Dunn didn't show much against South Korea. And I don't think she adds something different or extra with the other forwards on this team. I don't think there's a lot of variety here in the forwards in terms of what they can do. One thing Alex brought to the table that it was her facilitating role as a facilitator. I think she's a fantastic passer. She's got great vision in the final third. And when you've got players that like a Mallory Swanson or a Trinity Rodman that can play off of that add that vertical game and that speed and aggressiveness, I think they're great fits to have Alex Morgan. We didn't get to see that against South Korea because Alex Morgan didn't really play with them. She had a lineup that I thought was a terrible, terrible front three of Dunn, Morgan, and Shaw based on what they could do together and what they bring to the table and their skill sets. Very, very bad front three. So I think Emily Hayes made a huge mistake in that in terms of being able to look at players. I think she made a big mistake in leaving Morgan off and keeping Crystal Dunn. Because then again, if you're thinking, well, what about leadership? Again, I am empathetic and I understand Crystal Dunn's frustration when she talked about, I think last year, when she talked about not really wanting to be a left back, not wanting to be a defender and wanting to play in a more offensive oriented role. I get that. However, I don't think that's something that should have been said publicly. I think that was not the thing to do. And then you can also look at it as, hey, it's either you're playing left back and you're a starter and you're getting involved in the offense, or you're not making the roster. It's another way to look at it. But I think there are, look, we all love to hear all the stuff, right? And all behind the scenes. But for both coaches and players, there are conversations and there are things that you just don't discuss publicly. They stay behind closed doors. I think that was one of them. That's something she could, when she's retired, she could have talked about that. But I think having that conversation in private is where it should have stayed. I think another thing that I believe gave Crystal Dunn an edge here was that she played for Emma Hayes. And again, I'm not a fan of that sort of thing. I can't say that's what happened, but I want a coach to come in and I want a coach to pick the best possible team they can pick, regardless of personal relationships. Coaches and players can have great relationships, but they are not friends. They are coaches and players, and you have to separate the two. But look, I'm kind of just going through that to make clear what I think could be different, but it's minor. I mean, overall, from what they had at 23 to a roster of 18, I don't, I guess you could say I'm quibbling at this point. Uh, but really, for me, if I'm gonna, like I said, if I'm the changes I would make is that Staub would be in the back, and I would either have left off Kruger or Sonnet, and here I would have put Katerina Macario up as a forward, and she could still play, the 10 in the game, play a, attacking mid, but I would have made her a forward. I would have left Crystal Dunn off the roster, and then I would have put Johannes as a midfielder and say, hey, you know what? If we're going with this generational change, which is the reason they're saying Alex Morgan is at home, then leave Dunn at home as well and give Johannes this fantastic experience in the Olympics, because this is all about the next World Cup anyway. Yes, do we want to win a gold medal? Absolutely. The Olympics are a bigger thing on the women's side than the men because the men's is, the whole U23 thing, but it's the World Cup. And we're in transition and it's a new coach and we're talking about generational change and this younger generation. Great, fantastic. Leave Crystal Dunn at home. Put Macario on the roster as a forward. Put Johannesson on the roster as a midfielder, and let's actually embrace and do this thing. Same thing with Sam Staub, right? Kruger's been around a while. Emily Sonnet has played a lot of games for the U.S. women's national team. Put Staub back there and let's roll. Let's do it. Let's hit it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you have any quibbles with this roster? Are you okay with it? Do you think it's great? Is there someone I didn't even mention that you thought, hey, maybe they should be on it as well, or someone I didn't say shouldn't be here, and maybe you're thinking, well, why is this player on this team? Let me know. Hit me up in the comments. I really appreciate you checking out this video. Please like and subscribe. I am, now that we're having a summer of soccer, I'm going to get back to doing videos more consistently, and I appreciate you checking this out, and I will talk to you later.